Now the latest from ITV News Meridian in the south.
Good evening. Welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Why did you brake so hard? A court hears the last words of a Sussex driver moments before he's stabbed to death following a collision near Worthing.
Putting our emergency services to the test. So how would we cope if scenes like these were real life?
The hardest part of being an astronaut. In a news conference from space, Major Tim Peake admits it's tough being separated from his family.
And how to avoid a prickly problem. Why we're being warned to watch out for hedgehogs in our gardens. Good evening. The father of a man accused of murdering a pensioner had warned his son could hurt someone or worse if he wasn't given the treatment he needed. That's what a jury was told today at the trial into the death of Donald Locke from Sussex.
The retired solicitor from Worthing was stabbed 39 times in a frenzied attack following a minor collision on the A24 near Findon last July. 35-year-old Matthew Daly from Worthing denies murder. Abigail Bracken sends this report.
The family of Donald Locke arriving in court to hear how he was killed in July last year by a man who the court heard had mental health problems. Don Locke was 79 when he was knifed on the A24 at Findon near Worthing last year. He'd had a minor car crash with Matthew Edward Daly, who's 35 and from Worthing, and is now in court accused of his murder after he got out of his car and stabbed Don Locke 39 times. The prosecuting barrister, Mr. Philip Bennett QC, told the court that this is not a case of reasonable self-defence. Matthew Daly stabbed an unarmed man to death. That man, Donald Locke, did not attack him. Mr. Bennett said quite the contrary. It was the defendant who was the attacker. Matthew Daly suffers from a form of autism. The prosecution says the jury will have to decide how much his responsibility was impaired at the time of attack. But defending Mr. David Howker QC said there will be a debate about whether the defendant was actually suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and how well he was treated by the NHS. The defending barrister read out an email that Matthew Daly's father had written to doctors. It said, "If you do not give my son the care or treatment that he needs, then one of these days he's going to hurt someone." The case is expected to last around 2 weeks. Matthew Daly denies murder. Abigail Bracken, ITV News, Lewis Crown Court.
Other news now, and a burst water main left several homeowners without their supply in Bishopstoke near Eastleigh today. A 10-inch pipe sprung a leak in the early hours of this morning. Southern Water fixed the problem within a few hours.
A motorcyclist has been killed after she lost control of her bike and crashed in Portsmouth. The accident happened as she was travelling northbound on London Road yesterday afternoon.
Another 2 people are being questioned about the murder of a father of 4 from Southampton. Michael Freshwater was found dead in a flat on Westwich Road on Friday. One man has been charged with perverting the course of justice.
Hundreds of children were kept off school today in protest at new tests at primary schools. Some parents say the SATs exams for pupils as young as 6 are too difficult and label children as failures.
But the government says the more rigorous exams are vital to ensure children are learning to read, write and add up. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Christine Alsford.
For scores of families across the south today, it was all about taking a stand. In Brighton, the biggest rally by far as play and protest combined. In Shoreham too, the message to the government, we don't want a world for our children where only grammar and times tables count.
They've tried to make everything harder and actually the kids just aren't coping and we just want the government to listen.
My son's last year at primary school is being ruined by testing and more testing.
My 6-year-old comes home with maths homework
Lola's got kind of pressure to learn her 12 times table, and I'd rather they were kind of playing and doing more kind of creative stuff.
There's no test for happiness, and us as parents, we are saying to the government, our children are not happy.
Standard assessment tests, or SATs, for 7 and 11-year-olds will be tougher this year to reflect the new national curriculum. But parents here say even the brightest children are struggling.
Whereas before he would have been exceeding, he's now coming back with marks that are just over 50% of the required score.
I just seem to have got really lower scores than I did. I just feel quite pressured to get good results.
The government says, though the new assessment regime is vital, pupils shouldn't be stressed.
Schools should not be putting pressure on young people in taking the test. I've been to many schools where children don't even realise that they're taking the test, but we have to be sure that children are receiving the knowledge and skills that they need to succeed in life.
Unofficially, some schools are backing today's action, but some head teachers, like this one in Portsmouth, say they can't condone any time away from the classroom.
As far as I'm concerned, every day in school is really important. Children only come to school 190 days in a year, so every day really does count.
Pupils will sit the new style of exams across several days next week. The arguments over testing due to last far longer. Christine Osford, ITV News.
A woman's fighting for life after she was found seriously injured at a block of flats in Bournemouth. The woman in her 40s was found in the apartment on Clarence Park Road in Folkestone last night. One man's been arrested.
A public consultation on the future of children's services in Hampshire has ended. The County Council plans to close all 54 centres and replace them with 11 hubs to help streamline services and save money.
There were scenes of carnage in Southampton today, prompting a huge response from the region's emergency services. Dozens of casualties required treatment for serious injuries caused in an explosion.
But in case you're wondering why you haven't heard anything about it until now, it's because it was a major training exercise. So how well can our frontline services respond when they face the ultimate test? Kerry Swain has been finding out.
There's been an explosion in an office block. This man lies trapped under a slab of concrete, screaming in pain and panic. I can see he's lost his leg. It's distressingly realistic, but these casualties are acting. Andy, perfect for the part, as he lost his leg in a motorbike accident a year ago.
I got a phone call from my physio because they were looking for someone that was an amputee. They've helped me massively. Obviously, they saved my life, so if I can't help a little bit back, it's a bad thing, isn't it?
I used to work in a doctor's surgery, and then when I retired, I heard about the simulated patient programme.
It feels like we're in a disaster movie, but we're actually on a building site, what will become the new Children's Accident and Emergency Unit at Southampton General Hospital. The patients aren't real, but the emergency services are. Hampshire Fire and Rescue, South Central Ambulance and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance working with doctors and nurses.
We've got two male casualties down there. One with chest injuries and one with upper limb casualties.
I was blown through a window with the explosion, and on the way down I sort of got a bit of metal go into my side, then I fell on the other guy and broke his wrist as I was coming down.
Ready, brace and slide.
For hospital-based clinicians, it's really important for them to see some of the challenges of working in the pre-hospital environment, and for them to understand sometimes why the patients come in the condition that they're in, and also for them to understand and actually see the mechanisms that have caused the injuries firsthand.
A plastic foot with fake blood packed away with a smile until the next training exercise. Serious and lasting lessons learned today in the event of an actual large-scale incident. Kerry Swain, ITV News, Southampton.
Now you're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up, Simon with some cheering news on the weather front. Plus,
bowing out, the trains that have been taking the strain for the past 40 years are now heading for retirement.
For more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian or please get in touch in these many ways.
The future of Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust was raised in Parliament today after Friday's damning report said it's failing to protect its patients. Here's our political correspondent, Phil Hornby.
Parliament's business was interrupted this afternoon when a government minister had to come to the Commons to answer a special question about Southern Care from Labour.
So I want to express my deep concern and apology to the patients and family members who will again have felt let down by the contents of last week's CQC report. Our first duty to patients and their loved ones is to keep them safe.
Labour said apologies aren't enough.
Patients and parents have a right to be angry at the failure of Southern Health NHS Foundation Trust. We in this House have a duty to be angry on their behalf, to read the litany of failure, missed warnings, reports, recommendations ignored and secrecy over the last 4 years would make any reasonable person angry too.
She called for the chief executive to go and for a public inquiry, but the government say they're not convinced that's needed. The minister said investigations by the Care Quality Commission could lead to prosecutions.
The engagement of CQC and the fact that it's ruled out no further options in terms of taking any further action, its options are quite extensive, including prosecution for things that it's found. This process is not yet finished.
He said Southern Health will be watched closely and improvements will have to be made. Phil Hornby, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, Tim Peake has now spent 5 months in space and is due to return next month.
We first spoke to the astronaut from Chichester on board the International Space Station within days of his arrival. And today, Fred spoke to him live from the Royal Institute in London.
Tim, hello. Great to talk to you again and great to have you up there talking to our viewers down here. On a purely personal level, very briefly, I spoke to your mum very recently. She sends you her love. I know you speak on an almost daily basis, but I wonder if that is the worst part of the whole thing, the separation from the family.
Hello Fred, good to talk to you. And yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, the hardest part of being up here is separation from friends and family, although we do benefit from the wonderful communications that we have these days on board the space station. As you rightly said there, I get the opportunity to speak to friends and family by using an IP phone system, and once a week I have a video conference with my family as well, much like a Skype or a FaceTime call. So a lot different to how things were run a few years ago. In terms of the experiments that we've been doing up here, really every day is different. We're currently must be over 200 experiments that we've done now, still 6 weeks to go of this mission, and I think about 264 experiments in total are going to be run throughout expeditions 46 and 47.
You will not be aware, I suspect, of the incredible inspiration you've been to so many young people studying science, getting excited about science. Your dad said to me, at school you were quite middle of the road, but you were so determined. What's your message to all young people, all young viewers watching now, who'd like to be Tim Peake?
Fred, it's a very simple message. It is just to follow what it is you're passionate about. I mean, I had a very unorthodox route to becoming an astronaut. I did 3 A-levels at school. I did study maths, physics and chemistry, and I think it is very important to have a background in STEM subjects. But I left school at 19 and I joined the army, and I decided that I was passionate about flying and I wanted to fly helicopters, and I had a hugely successful career. And I didn't gain my degree in flight dynamics until the ripe old age of 33, where I had to go back to school and study very hard again to get myself up to degree level mathematics. But if you're passionate about something, you'll generally be good at it, and that will give you the motivation to succeed.
Astronaut Tim Peake there talking from space. He is quite incredible, isn't he? So determined.
Definitely an inspiration.
He really is. Now, they've been the mainstay of our passenger express rail network for 40 years, but for many, it will soon be the end of the line.
Yes, the Intercity 125s have seen service the length and breadth of the country. And to mark the 40th anniversary, Great Western Railway held a special celebration, as our transport correspondent Mike Pearce explains.
From across the country, locomotives came for the special celebration. It's 40 years since high-speed rail came to Britain, the so-called age of the train, the Intercity 125. The occasion was unique with so many of the locomotives together. Not surprising then, enthusiasts came in their thousands to take pictures and be part of the special day. Some had queued for hours.
Very surprised at the huge queue that was building up outside on the main road, yeah.
It's fabulous. The way they've lined them up as well is really good. It's nice to see all the different liveries as well.
British made icon, really.
Well, today is about celebrating the 40 years of hard work, graft and effort that the high-speed train has delivered to UK railways. We're on the cusp of the brother and the sister of the high-speed trains in the Intercity Express train in the next couple of years, and we thought this was a good time to celebrate the work that it has done and all of the engineers that have worked on them has done.
The highlight was the naming of the very first 125 to enter service after the man who designed it, Sir Kenneth Grange. To mark the occasion, it was painted in its original livery.
I use my train a lot, and I still have some concern about it in all the details. If the toilet's not at its best, I feel a degree of responsibility, but you can never escape the association, both in terms of its glory and its, what it is to people.
Pleased it's still here?
Of course, thrilled to bits, and it looks to me as though it's going to last me out easily.
In 1976, the Intercity 125 revolutionised travel with new higher speeds between our towns and cities.
Higher maximum speed up to 125 miles an hour in air-conditioned comfort and better on-board facilities than had been experienced any time before that.
The 125 still have lots of life left, but many will soon be replaced with new Hitachi bullet trains. For those here, a day to remember. Mike Pearce, ITV News.
Time for some sports news now, and it'll be winner takes it all for Brighton's final game of the season this weekend after they could only draw at home yesterday.
ITV Meridian Sport Report, sponsored by WeWantAnyCar.com, the Cash for Cars website.
Yesterday's draw against Derby at the Amex means Brighton travel to Middlesbrough on Saturday, with the winner of that match promoted to the top flight. James Wilson equalised deep into injury time to give the Seagulls a much-needed point. Chris Hughton's side, who sit in third place only on goal difference, will be without suspended defender Lewis Dunk, though, following his second yellow yesterday. Southampton kept alive their hopes of European football with a convincing win over Manchester City. Shane Long opened the scoring before Sadio Mane fired in a hat-trick. The dates for Portsmouth's League Two playoff matches against Plymouth will take place on Thursday, May the 12th and Sunday, May the 15th. This Saturday's results will determine which leg will be played at home. And in cricket, Hampshire have confirmed fast bowler Fidel Edwards is out for the remainder of the season after suffering a broken ankle whilst warming up for April's match against Yorkshire.
Now, it finally looks like the weather is warming up, and it's certainly not before time, but for the gardeners out there, the sunshine will mean the start of a very busy time.
But it also signals a dangerous time for some of our best-loved wild animals, as Amber Glossop knows only too well. Mel Blore has been talking to her.
This is little Romeo, an orphan hedgehog who came to Amber Glossop at just 3 weeks old. The IT sales worker has been taking in sick and injured hedgehogs for 2 years and currently has 105 of the spiky critters in her home, garden and garage. This week is Hedgehog Awareness Week and the focus is on gardens.
It's really just to be really careful when you're doing your gardening. Any long grass, please do check first because they're often hiding there and they can obviously freeze when you do the strimming and you can have some nasty, horrific injuries.
As a self-funded organisation, Hope for Hedgehogs relies on donations from members of the public. Once a hedgehog has been nursed back to full health, Amber releases it back into the wild, away from danger. Since the 1950s, the hedgehog population in the UK has dropped from an estimated 36 million to less than just 1 million. But where hedgehogs do remain as strong as ever is in the public's affections. Mel Blore, ITV News, Ascot.
So cute. Keep an eye out for them, won't you? But it is good to have some sunshine.
Well, it is, but there is a downside, Stace.
Really?
Have you felt a bit sniffly, scratchy eyes?
No.
Pollen season is back, and we're bringing back the pollen counts here on ITV News Meridian. So here's what you need to know about pollen. Firstly, 20% of us suffer from hay fever. The main pollen season runs from May to early August, with tree pollen being the biggest problem just now. But of course, most hay fever sufferers are allergic to grass pollen. And the grass season peaks from the end of May until the beginning of July. And if you are affected, don't be drowning your sorrows, as alcohol makes things worse. Beer, wine and spirits all contain histamine, which is the chemical that sets off allergy symptoms to the body. Now, pollen is collected in various sites across the country. Grains are then counted. Fewer than 29 grains is considered a low risk. 30 to 49 moderate. 50 to 149 is high, with very high above 150. So we'll keep an eye on the pollen count for you, so you'll know today what it's going to do tomorrow and whether or not you're in for a sniffly kind of day.
Thank you very much, Simon. Right, let's find out about that pollen and the weather. Here's Simon.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe, Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Well, now, assuming you weren't up at 3:02 this morning, you might have missed this. It's the Milky Way, as seen in the Dorset night sky by Nick Lucas. And it'll be another lovely, clear night tonight, with another very decent day tomorrow. High pressure out towards the east, keeping the weather fronts to the west. And that means fine and settled conditions. Temperatures, well, about right for the time of year. 16, 17 degrees. But come the weekend, it's going to get an awful lot warmer. We've got low pressure down to the south. Therefore, the winds around are going to drag in the very warm air from the near continent. And on Saturday, well, we could get a high of around 23. That's 73 in Fahrenheit, which for this point in May is pretty spectacular. So look forward to that. Meanwhile, tonight it's going to be exceptionally nippy. Might need your bed socks tonight, with temperatures down to around freezing. Clear skies pretty much all the way. Bit of rural frost, perhaps even a bit of mist as well. But that'll disappear quickly tomorrow, because again, we've got lots of blue sky to wake up to. Lots of sunshine through the day. Bits and bobs of fair weather cloud. Temperatures 16, 61 in Fahrenheit, but towards the coast and around the Isle of Wight, because the wind is coming straight off the cool sea, will be that bit fresher. As for your high tide times, in Poole, 8:10 in the morning, 20 to 9 in the evening.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Keeping a close eye on summer. The pollen count, sponsored by Allergy Eye Drops.
Well, there's quite a bit of birch pollen around just now, and oak is on the increase as well. So pollen levels tomorrow will be high, and as the fine and settled weather continues for the rest of the week, that's how they'll stay.
There was a 23 in that forecast. Now that is more like it, isn't it? Now coming up shortly, the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
But from all the team here at Meridian, thanks very much for watching.
Good night.
Bye-bye.